first and foremost, since the previous session was about 802.11ac, I don't need to re-explain all of those things to you, right? You get the need for speed. And clearly, if you're looking at any of the network sort of statistics, pretty much quoting the Cisco VNI, you can see the smartphones will be the biggest sort of chunk of the sort of traffic, in the network going forward. So with this, you can sort of start looking at what do you need to be ready for the future. So over the last few months, you must have seen multiple presentations from Cisco talking about one policy, one management, and one network, right? So one network part was somewhat ambiguous. Now we can talk about that aspect. So I really wanted to re-emphasize, guys, one policy, we delivered this with ICE. One network, we delivered this with Cisco Prime. And now, the one network, this is delivered with 3850 and 5760. So I'm going to jump really quickly into more and more details of each of these aspects. But first thing I wanted to answer, these two controllers are not replacing every other controller in the Cisco portfolio. All right? We believe there are lots of customers which are very small, which want to just buy access point. And to them, we have autonomous access points. We have of course, the Meraki managed solution. When you start growing up, there are multiple types of customers. Wireless itself is a multi-billion-dollar industry. We cannot simply say, this is the only architecture, this is the only solution for you customers. We acknowledge the fact that there are multiple types of customers. There's large campus, service providers, small campus with a controller on-premise and a branch. And all of these are pretty much different parts of the overall solution. So I wanted to kind of talk about each of these really quickly. So just so you understand, all of these controllers that we have refreshed over the last 1.5 years will continue to stay and be a big part of the portfolio. What I wanted to really emphasize is the 5760 is a fantastic campus controller. 3850 is a great sort of campus/branch controller, right? And at the same time, there may continue to be customers that are interested in the other types of deployments and which may find some of the other types of controllers in display. Are there any questions about this?
Can you don't ask this question. We want to get to technology.
All right.
Question. 5760. I'd read a little bit about it, but it sounds like you mentioned campus. So is it really just tying into the 3850s, or can it replace a 5508 without using those 3850s?
So the quick answer is yes. It can operate just like a 5500. You can have access points just managed by a 5760, just like you have with the 5500 today, right? So at the same time, we can also operate in the converged access mode. So,
but there's some features missing at the moment, at least, right, on the 5760.
I mean, it's essentially a matter of, if you look at the last 1 year, Cisco's introduced so many innovations, not even we can keep up with it.
Right.
Right? So that's really a matter of that. I mean, some of the software features can be introduced over time. I'm not here to provide a software roadmap update, of course, given the nature of this discussion.
But some of those new features will make their way.
Right. I mean, as you know, most of our customers, they have software deployments anywhere from the 4.2, 6.0, 7.0, all the way up to the latest and greatest 7.4 that we've released, right? So I think if you look at from that perspective, customers that are still deploying 4400 WISMs and they jump over to this, wow, I get a whole lot more features. Suddenly,
what are the if the customer's not going to use the 3850s, what are the advantages, or would they use this instead of the 5508? The one thing that comes to mind is it does 1000 APs versus the 500.
Right.
So are there any other reasons?
Yeah, so I think my slides will quickly cover into this. Right. I think there's probably a cue for me to go a little bit faster. So for anybody who doesn't know what the new architecture is, so there are multiple modes of deployments as well, the autonomous, flex, connect, centralized. We've introduced a brand new mode, which is a converged access mode. So what is the converged access mode? If any of you don't know what this is about, is really this is where your access points will terminate the data plane right here on the switch, and essentially, you can so that can give you multiple benefits as it talks about infinite sort of data plain scalability, and then single point of enforcement of policies for wired and wireless. So there are multiple sort of benefits with that, with the converged access. And I'll quickly talk about.
Just a question on that. I mean,
Sure.
I'm familiar with the centralized model where you're sending all the traffic back to the centralized controller. With the converged access model, I think it's the 3800 series that you're using that for. Is there still a need to have a centralized controller in that model, or is it just doing distributed forwarding, or is it
Right.
completely eliminating the need for a centralized controller?
So there is sort of infinite flexibility within the architecture that's built in. So you can actually look at a very small deployment wherein you have a one or more 3850 sort of switches within a stack, right? So you can pretty much have your the intermediate or MA concept and the MC, everything running on the same 3850, and that will be fine. You can actually stack multiple, you can have multiple stacks of 3850 clubbed together in a mobility group to actually go up to a scale of all the way up to 250 without the need for a separate standalone box. At the same time, you can continue to use your existing 5500s, your WISM 2s as MCs in this model. Or thirdly, you can take a 5760 and deploy that as an MC. So pretty much infinite scalability and sort of flexibility available into this. So you can keep your existing APs, 11 N APs. You can keep your existing 5500s, WISM 2s, and simply throw in 3850. If you're a customer that's just refreshing your wired, you can do that.
So Cisco's moving to more of an architecture now where you can either choose a centralized model or a distributed model.
Absolutely. It's really a matter of what's the right thing for you, Mr. Customer, right?
And do you have like a nice table that says at what point do you make the jump from distributed to centralized or super centralized or converged? Or, I mean, now that we have lots of options,
Right.
How do you said, oh, it's up to the customer. When they need kind of a guidelines.
Right. So I think it's really a matter of, I'll cover some of this in the next few slides, but really to answer your specific question, if you're a customer that's, just deploying wireless right now, if you're about to buy wireless, you just bought wired recently, in that case, you would sort of just pick any centralized controller. You would pick a 5760 or a 5500 or whatever else that you like, right? So it's really a matter of, if I'm a customer that likes Cat 6K, I'll buy WISM 2s. So you can pick any of these options. There are multiple of these, and really, depending on the customer type, we would help them choose. I mean, specifically to answer your question, we have a very comprehensive Excel sheet which goes into every single thing, every single feature, gives you the benefit of each of these. But it's very difficult to be prescriptive because there are many, many types of customers. And really, our sales team do a great job sort of helping them with it. But I'll just jump over to you since I don't want to ignore you.
No, that's fine. On the 3800, I understand this is less documented, and I kind of heard a couple different stories.
Right.
Perhaps you can help confirm for me. When you do a wireless code upgrade, you have to reboot the stack, which today in a large enterprise where I have 7,000 to 10,000 wireless clients, it's easy for me to do a change management to say wireless is going to go down. Now, if I have a 3800 replacement in distributed architecture, I have to bring down 40,000 clients, potentially, right? I mean, if I have 3800s everywhere, is that the case?
So essentially, it is one single image. There are some benefits that you get with that, and some downsides that you have with this. But essentially, you have to reboot sort of the wireless LAN controller or the switch in order to get this latest software upgrades. So that is accurate.
Any plans for ISSU on the platform or anything like that?
As you know, ISSU.
Roadmap, sorry.
Yeah, no, ISSU is something within the Cisco portfolio of solutions, right? I mean, over a period of time, you can imagine those kinds of things merging into some of these things. But it's a good guess from your side. But I have no plans to sort of diverge at this point.
Will you cover a bit, like quickly, that new architecture with Mobility Oracle and the agent and so on?
Actually, there is supposed to be a separate sort of session on the 3850. They would probably go a bit more into converged access. I wanted to kind of stick more to 5760, due to that reason.
Let me ask you just one more before you get back.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I know you've got an agenda, but is there going to be support in any other Catalyst switch, any of the late generation ones that are already out there, already in place to ever do what the 3850 can do?
As soon as we stop recording, I'll talk to you about this offline.
Thank you.
All right. All right. So really, I think just wanted to kind of tell you the story. I mean, if you joined wireless or started tracking it like I did in 2005, we moved from autonomous to sort of control-based solutions, wherein we did all the real-time stuff in the AP and all the centralized coordination stuff, clean air, RRM, all of those kinds of things on the controller, right? So now what we are doing with the converged access, really, I wanted to kind of just bring that out is, with the next generation of switches, you can actually terminate the data plane right here and get all the benefits of the converged access, which is massive data plane scalability, consistent policy across wired and wireless, and traffic localization between roams, right? So if you're keeping traffic really local, why do you need to send it all the way back to the controller? So lots of benefits that you can get with this, and with the controller, as I said, you continue to do the higher level coordination, system-wide coordination across the board. So let me quickly jump onto this. I think I've covered this point already. But as I said, this is not a whole rip and replace thing, as you guys may have heard elsewhere. The biggest thing to highlight out here, if you're a customer, you have 11 and APs, you have a 5500, and you're just buying 3850s today, you can move to converged access mode by keeping your controller, keeping your APs, right? And simply your switch being your MA. So that's a simple thing. There is infinite flexibility built into this.
So is there a reason why it has to be that one? I mean, what's in that switch that makes it allow for this? Is it like is there a controller
Beautiful cue for
software?
me to go ahead. I want to kind of jump into this and sort of jump into the heart of this really quickly. First and foremost, it's built on a UADP ASIC, Unified Access Data Plane ASIC. What this ASIC essentially does, go back into the access points and the custom ASIC that we do around there, right? I mean, we sort of focus on multiple things that a ASIC wants to do specifically, for this product. So let me talk about a few things that we focused on. First and foremost, we are preparing a network for AC. And what does this mean? We will give you wire speed 60 gig. So first and foremost, let me just double click on each of these points. This is 10 gig, right? So you can have 1 or 10 gig uplinks, pretty much. So you can get 6 10 gig uplinks. The 5760 is right here. It's stacked over here, so you guys can't run away with it, right? So Devesh is going to give you a demo of this, as we go into this. But there are 6 10 gig uplinks, so it's a 60 gig performance. And we do that not just with a 1500 byte packet size, with a mix of packet sizes. Okay? Something for you to emphasize on, keep in mind. Even if your packet size goes down, like your typical iMix and such is like approximate average of 250 bytes packet, we will give you line rate performance. Okay? That's an important point to note. Second one, there's hardware assistance for ACL, NetFlow, QoS, DTLS, all of those kinds of things are essentially assisted by hardware, which means if you pile on a variety of QoS, ACLs, flexible NetFlow, all on top of that, your wire speed 60 gig is not going to be hampered. Okay? So really wanted to you to keep in mind, UADP ASIC gives you line rate performance, and as you can imagine on the 3850, it is line rate 40 gig. So let's jump on to the second point, which is advanced QoS. For the first time on wireless LAN controllers, we do hardware-based queues. So essentially, you can get 4 hardware queues, and you can take advantage of it using MQC-based CLI. So did I mention this is going to be iOS-based only, right? So first and foremost, this is the first controller that gives you iOS CLI. So what that means is that essentially, if you are a customer that already knows how to do basic CCNA level commands, you do your iOS type functions, secure shell, any of the telnet, any of the scripting stuff, you can start doing the same things with this. The exact same commands that you execute on the switch, you can pretty much use that for configuring your controller. Of course, except the port part, because you don't have a physical port on the controller, right? So there are multiple different innovations built into this, but this is where you can really start taking use of all of the consistency, the one network or the one policy or one management part of it, because of the consistency across the two. And I think I kind of emphasized this already. One network aspect comes from multiple aspects. One is there is this different ASIC built into this. So 3850 and the 5760 was built on top of this. So the UADP ASIC. Secondly, both of them run the exact same iOS CLI. So it's the exact same iOS 3.2.0 SE that Devesh will point out?
iOS
iOS
XE. So it's
XE.
running an iOS XE software on both 3850 and 5960. So pretty much like all the iOS-based features, the core we already have, are also inbuilt into these controllers.
So specifically, we've heard this from multiple customers. Okay, when am I going to get things like multiple lag? When am I going to get basic secure shell scripting? Can I just copy paste the configuration from one switch to the other or one controller to the other? You can start making all of these basic things really easily with this, right? Some of the iOS innovations you can start thinking about, right? I mean, flexible NetFlow. We've had that on switches for a while. Now you can get a full flexible NetFlow v9 on this, at FCS. All of the policies that we talked about, Devesh will go into a deeper dive with the demo and kind of do that. So I'm going to try to zoom ahead a little bit faster to kind of show you this. I mean, you guys can come and touch the 5760 right here, but this gives you a quick picture of this. 6 10 gig uplinks. You can sort of see, yes, you can deploy it in centralized as well as converged access mode. This supports 1,000 access points, right, and 12,000 clients. So just to give you an idea of the scale, this typical Cisco building that you're sitting in, it takes about 70 access points to manage it, okay? And it's about 1,000 clients in this building. So you're talking about managing 12 Cisco buildings. That's a decent campus with one single 1RU platform. That's what this guy can do for you. This can essentially, I think we kind of talked about most of the other aspects, so I'm going to try to run ahead. All of the fruable fans, fruable power supplies, all of these are sort of consistent across 3850, 5760, all of those. So I think, I just wanted to kind of breeze through some of these aspects. I think in the interest of time, I'm going to start going a bit faster again. We support the full flexible NetFlow. In the 7.4 release, we actually supported the static NetFlow for simply exporting out the NVAR2 based entries. What this guy does is this does the full flexible NetFlow, so you can define your own entries for doing the flexible NetFlow with this. Pretty much consistent across the 3850 and the 5760, and as I mentioned, it is all prioritized within the UADP ASIC. So which means wire speed. So let's jump on to the granular QoS aspects of this. As I mentioned, one of the biggest things with this is, this is hardware-based QoS for the first time. This is not the 4 software queues that you expect from, typical controllers. This is where you can sort of take advantage of the MQC-based CLI, right? Modular QoS CLI that you can expect on the CAT 4500E series. Already, you can pretty much use a similar type of commands on this as well as the 3850. So you don't have to understand exactly what's in the hardware. How do I execute a command which is exactly for that? So all of that exists right now. So essentially, we can do the approximate fair drop, which is yet another innovation which allows you to do fair sharing of bandwidth. So if there is one particular heavy hitter, we can sort of figure out how all the rest of the guys do not get starved around us. So let's actually kind of keep jumping ahead. So this picture really quickly shows you a flavor of the CLI. What does a CLI really look like? So I wanted to kind of show it to you. I mean, if you guys play around with the CLI, like I'm sure most of you guys do, you can see this. You can see the flexible NetFlow related CLI. It looks exactly the same as you are familiar with right now. So you can do the same for wired and wireless. So you can see QoS related CLI. It looks exactly the same as you may be familiar with iOS XE right now. Let's look at further sort of IP access group, right? I mean, you can definitely start looking at all of these. So that's really the power of this. Pretty much if you already know this, if you know the iOS CLI and the commands, then you can start making use of this. So really quickly, I wanted to jump onto the topic of licensing and kind of describe what's the new thing that we are doing within this. So before we do that, first and foremost, if you guys are familiar with the 5500, Wisdom 2s, 2500, any of those controllers, you know that if you run into a situation wherein I bought 250 AP license at base and I want to migrate to 500 now, so you got to buy plus 250 adder, right? Then you have to go through a couple of steps. It's like a specific serial number. You have to get a license pack for it, and you can download it and then install it on the particular system, and it's all tied into the box, right? So it's a little bit of overhead for customers. what we've discovered is pretty much most of our customers, these are customers that we can pretty much trust, so this is a trust-based model that we are moving towards. It is essentially right to use, trust-based modeling. So what does this give to you? So essentially, if you are a customer that already bought some controllers with the base licenses, you want to actually add licenses, you can pretty much go and buy it as you do today. But in order to actually install it, all you have to do is to go on the command line and execute some commands. So pretty much go on the command line, hit end user licensing agreement, hit accept on that, and that's how you do to essentially add added licenses. The other thing that's really cool about this, you can pretty much move licenses between your 3850s to 3850s, between your 3850s to 5760s, and 5760s to 5760s. And we do that with the granularity of one AP license. So if you want to buy 367 APs, you can buy 367 AP licenses, and you can move them around as you need with a simple iOS CLI click. Yeah, sorry, I'll take you first, and then
does the box talk back to Cisco in any way, or because today it's a rather involved process. You have to get it back, you have to get online, get it, and then.
So that's essentially the main thing we were trying to avoid. Most of our customers are like, I get 10 access points on Friday night, and I have to install it on the weekend. It's a massive headache. Why get on a call with the TAC, with the licensing, get a temporary license, all of that headache. Very simple. You go on the CLI, you execute the command, that's it. Boom.
It's one line command.
That's it.
Trust me.
What about high availability licensing?
What about high availability and licensing? We are coming out with a separate HA SKU, just like we have for 5500 with any of the other controllers. So 5500-HA SKU. Similarly, we have started shipping 5760-HA SKU. So pretty much solves your licensing problem with that. Any other questions? All right, I want to quickly jump ahead to Devish, because this is the best part of the thing. This is not just architecture. This is actual shipping box. Let's look at the demo.
So give me a minute.
While he's firing up the demo, the question I had,
Yes.
you didn't answer,
Oh.
was why do we need 3800? Why can't we just have regular old switches? We have to have a special switch in order to go converged.
No.
So essentially, as you look at it, the Unified Access Data Plane was the special ASIC, and now it runs actually iOS XE, which is the modular sort of version of iOS on it. It's a completely different sort of brand of sort of solution that we have created, and this is really focused on both giving you the throughput and the performance that you expect with 802.11 AC, as well as sort of giving you the one policy aspect of things, and
So
such
what you're
things.
saying is, all those slides are talking about the 5700.
Yes,
That same iOS is
Correct.
in the 3800.
that's right. So the
Okay,
exact
that was-
same. Oh yeah, sorry.
So that's why you can't use any switch. You have to have
Correct.
38.
3850.
It needs that version.
Correct.
Okay.
To do converged access. But if you're doing centralized access mode, which is basically just your APs talking to your controls, you can have 5760.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't address that. Devish, go ahead.
So yeah, Jeevan, we've been talking about one policy, one management, one network, and we'll try to go over the one use case of the one policy, see what is mean and how we can apply this one policy. So the user goes in, I will go to the same, the flow, the user comes in, how did it get provisioned and profiled, and once it's into the network, what is the one policy? So user goes over here, try to select the SSID. Types in the username, password. Okay, so now it's like pretty much onto the her first level of being access being given. Now it does the same, the BYOD workflow. I know you have been seen this before, but I'll just walk you through. So it tries to do www.cisco.com. Now when it tries to do cisco.com, what will happen is basically it will, all the packet will get at the switch itself or the controller itself, it will get stopped, and then it will get redirected. and now he needs to install all the profiles. So once it's installed the profile, it needs to register the device. It registers, in this case, it's like my iPad.
That prompt there, that was because it's self-signed or a private. It's using a private PKI.
Yeah. So
and I know that this is a demo, but
now it's installed the profile.
I think that's a big issue with, like, we're technical people, but the average user, that's just another error to them. Or so what is that using? Is that PEEP or? No,
so the level of authentication is like, first it goes to the PEEP authentication,
yep.
And then it you need to install the certificate. So this
so
level
what
of
I'm saying is installing that certificate, that error. Can you use a public PKI certificate?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's a different. Either you can use your own PKI, the server, or you can have a public PKI server. Or if you don't want to use the authentication, the certificate based, the different level of authentication you can provide.
Yeah.
So
no problem using a public certificate.
So in this case, what I try to do is, like, hey, PEEP authentication, username, password, and then try to, hey, install all the profiles, provision the device, and then install all the certificate onto the device. And now once the certificate is installed, you didn't look at it, but it got toggled. So that means the change of authorization triggered, and now it's like being authorized to access the network. So user goes, hey, I'm in the network, let me try to go and watch a video. So it goes over there to the live streaming. Okay, so it starts doing the live streaming part, and now admin says, hey, I provisioned all my iPads. Now what if I want to block all the P2P traffic on my iPads for my entire network? So let me walk you through this. So this guy is watching a video, and now this guy is 3. So now I'm in console into my ICE server, and I'll try to, hey, provision a one-click policy. A one policy get applied, and it will be applied for all your networks. So let me just walk you through that. So I'll just go to the authorization profile, select downloadable ACL, select the policy. Hey, policy 1. The policy 1 is basically, hey, deny all the P2P traffic onto your network. That's it.
So one of the important things to note is, in the past we only did dynamic ACLs. With this, we are doing downloadable ACLs as well, right? As you can imagine, with iOS, we get a lot of richness. This is downloadable ACLs that customer had asked for before. Yeah.
So correct me if I'm wrong, downloadable ACLs are only on a switch. On the wireless LAN controller, it's named ACLs.
Except for on the 5760.
Yeah.
Except for the 5760.
5760. That's right.
You can do downloadable ACL to your wireless controller and to your switch.
So if you look at any of the richness of iOS, we can simply copy that over now. That's pretty much the benefit of this. So you can start seeing everything which is ACL, which will have 10,000 different features underneath that, right?
So now the policy is being applied. So this policy being applied not for the wireless client. This policy is for your entire network, wired and wireless. So now the user goes over there. For the sake, I will try to reauth the client. So I just toggled it to re-authenticate the client, and now client goes over here and try to watch the same video. So pretty much it's not able to access any of those. So the advantage of this thing is, like, you selected a one policy, you created one policy on the fly, and the policy get applied not to your just wireless client, but for your entire network. And it's pretty seamless and pretty powerful. Oops. So let me walk you through. So there's one more demo. I'll be, Jeevan been talking about the advanced QoS, the hierarchical QoS. I'll try to give a demo. What does that mean, and what is it in? So. Okay, let me walk you through, like, what is it going on over here. So, is everybody can see? Okay. So, so I have like two SSID. One is the guest SSID and one is the employee SSID. So what basically I'm doing is like both are on the same on the same RU box. So so now my radio is getting congested. If my radio is getting congested, you will see the employee is not even getting affected. Both are watching the same video. But you see the video on the guest SSID is pretty cluttered, and it will never go more than 2 meg. So the point over here is you can apply the policy not just at the port level, but also at the radio level. You can apply the policy per SSID. You can apply the policy per client. And now you can also apply a policy triple play, voice, video, data, prioritize them. What do you want? What's your application? And on top of it, hey, now I want to go more level deep, which is like application. Take the NetFlow information, apply the policy based on the NetFlow. So it gives pretty much your hierarchical QoS advantage of how you can apply the policy, go much more granular for your, the business critical application. And one more advantage I see is like, initially we used to always point the traffic onto the, the DMZ controller, because we never able to manage the guest network. But with the hierarchical QoS, you can pretty much manage the guest network onto the same controller itself and apply the consistent policy for the guest network.
So is this a feature of the 5760s and the 3850s, or
yes.
It looks like, to me it looks like ABC. You're doing NetFlow and then you're applying quas on those streams, as opposed to the far less granular quas of, older code.
So look at it this way. I mean,
is this
maybe
actually ABC we're seeing, really?
No. This is not.
This is essentially flexible NetFlow v9. With the iOS-based solution, we support sort of flexible NetFlow v9. It's your guess and mine. We could essentially import our AVC iOS code all the way up to 5760 as well in the future. That's of course could happen. What this is showing is essentially, as Devesh mentioned, flexible NetFlow v9 tied into QoS. Why this is more powerful is this is essentially sort of tied into hardware-based queuing, hardware-based QoS, and granular sort of QoS. There are a few other things, innovations that probably require more time than this, but approximate fair drop, which is yet another thing, which is like, let's suppose among all of us, there's me who's suddenly doing BitTorrent out here and suddenly taking up all the sort of spectrum. You can actually go down into this and say, if nobody else is using a lot of spectrum, then give him sort of 60% of it. But if Devesh suddenly joins, he's actually trying to do WebEx or Jabber or something important, then sort of give him 10% extra. So those are the kinds of innovations and things built into the QoS hardware aspects of this, right? So that's
and that functionality is not available on, say, 55i
correct.
7.4 code.
No, that part of it is not available within this. Again, 5500 with 7.4, it has static NetFlow. It's some of the things that are like made optimized for that platform. Let's say because of the hardware and software capability of that.
Perhaps.
Sorry?
This is kind of like the next level of that.
Exactly. It goes into the next level of QoS and application granularity.
And AFD is all hardware based. You don't need any configuration for a specific AFD because it's like it's on the hardware. So the client fairness across within the SSIDs, it's there.
Right. And this is, I guess, taking a bit of a very small detour, but the iOS, because we've now gone from iOS based autonomous APs. After the airspace, it was obviously
right.
airspace as CLI. When I'm configuring an SSID, for example, in iOS on the 5760, is the same syntax on the autonomous APs or similar syntax?
No, I mean, so first and foremost, this is a different flavor of iOS. The iOS XE, as Devesh pointed out, it's a modular iOS, brand new sort of iOS that's been introduced.
But has it taken some of those same, am I doing .11s or SSID? Is it some of the same commands, or do I have to learn now a third sequence?
No, it's the iOS command. So class map, policy map.
Well, that's for was what I'm saying.
So you can't take autonomous AP commands and copy them over. So that's
no, I'm just saying from a learning perspective, am I having to? And I'm not even talking about quads here. I'm just talking about basically setting up a simple SSID. Those sort of commands you do on an autonomous AP now. Is it a similar syntax or?
It's like very similar. I can show you. I mean, if you want, I can show you.
Okay.
Right.
I'll see it soon.
So.
Yeah, it is a similar syntax. So essentially, you can sort of see that.
Because obviously that was a thing. I mean, because the GUI was quite good on the controllers.
Right.
It's not that often people dropping to the CLI except
Correct.
for debugs, but obviously still a bit of a learning curve.
It's not the exact same thing as what you had on the autonomous AP.
Right.
But it's similar. Like you have an interface to .11. instead of like a gigabit interface, you have an interface with .11, and then you have an interface for like SSIDs. So these are interfaces that are built in the iOS CL. It wasn't the exact same thing on the autonomous. So that's the only difference.
And just so you know, I mean, it's like there are some customers that absolutely love iOS CLI and live by it. You know, when I used to do Unix coding, I used to simply operate on the CLI anyway. But what this is about is, right now we do support iOS CLI, but we plan to also introduce the similar type of GUI that you have with 5500. So we're not forcing customers, okay, you have to do this.
Oh, so
it's
you're
like,
saying there isn't a GUI on the...
So there is a little bit of GUI on that. It's not as full-fledged as
Is
a
it the GUI
5500.
from like the 1230s and stuff? Because that was pretty awesome.
All right.
Oh, sorry. Oh, that was sarcasm.
1230? Yeah, we need to refresh your access point. Let's talk offline. But
So if you look at this one, this is the command to create an SSID.
It's a guest SSID right there. So you got things, specify the VLAN, but IP access group, that's the regular iOS command. And then in terms of security, it's not the exact same commands like you would have autonomous, but it's that same hierarchical where you configure that SSID,
Right.
apply the security to it, and then apply the SSID to an AP.
Okay.
Or AP groups.
so you can pretty much copy paste this from one controller to the other, do those kinds of basic things that you
Sure.
expect with iOS CLI.
So
I think the difference, what I find is like the config word is not there anymore. Config and the longer command, now you have to just type in the command.
Yeah.
Instead of Workspace,
How will you say, hey, I actually deserve my CCI? Anyway, let's.
My question is about how many different software platforms do we now need to know in order to support Cisco wireless? Your autonomous, well, actually the pre-autonomous, then the autonomous, then
Wireless
now,
control.
I mean,
So-
and if you have a mix of 5700s and 5500s, where do you? I mean, is this going to converge sometime to one massive set, or?
So first and foremost, 5500s and such will never run the exact same sort of iOS, because it does not run iOS first and foremost, right? But it's foreseeable, as you know, that access points themselves run iOS as well. It's a different flavor of iOS. You could as well foresee a sort of merging between those two. But I'm just talking about, I'm dreaming just like you guys are.
But presumably going forward, whatever replaces the 5508 in a couple of years' time, if there is a replacement, then you're going to be moving to the iOS as the longer term goal, presumably.
Some customers, will essentially look at the 5760 and look at that as being a great replacement. I mean, there are many customers which even have 4400 right now, and they'll just
I guess
jump
I'm
to the.
thinking like 5 years.
Yeah.
But I guess that's the new replacement, isn't it? That's the new replacement.
So 5 years down the line, if you have every switch out there which has UADP ASIC underneath that, and you have a control functionality built into that, maybe you are a customer that says, I want to have wired and wireless everything within my same switch. Why would I even need a separate control? It's really 5 years down the line, who knows exactly, but really I think over a period of time you can sort of expect many, many things to happen. From our perspective, I think we've seen the market to be incredibly broad, and therefore we are doing everything from autonomous, all the way up to, 5760.
Eventually I can drop off knowledge, like I don't need to know VxWorks anymore.
Right, absolutely. You can drop that now, but yeah. All right.
Because these controller, the iOS-based controller, they can work with the existing one because both supports the newer mobility we have. So you can have a hybrid model, you can have the centralized model, or you can have a converged model. So depends upon how your migration path is. All three models are applicable and they will work together.